Hey, I just got good news all about Wakfu. Season 3 is now on Netflix, so here I am to talk all about how much I love this show on this long overdue Kirblog. All right, so a little backstory on this one. First of all, I'm going to be spoiling a lot of things, I guess, just about the show in general. So if you've not seen the series already, I highly recommend you go all the way back and listen to this old Wakfu Kirblog that I did literally, like, I think 3 or 4 years ago when the Kickstarter was happening. A little bit of backstory on that. So for those of you who don't know, Wakfu was a show that I was a huge fan of in college. It was actually a really big inspiration on the creation of the Tome web series in 2011 and everything. And I was seriously rooting for it to get a release in the U.S. And so when a few years ago, Ankama did the Kickstarter to fund an English dub for the series, I donated quite a bit of money after doing a storm of commissions for people quite some time ago. So I did that, and this was also able to fund getting them a third season, as well as before that, a few OVAs that they did as kind of a short mini-season in between that. Which was awesome. However, at the time, I was tremendously disappointed because the Kickstarter trailer led me to believe that they were going to be doing the English dub in LA with a lot of experienced voiceover actors out here in animation and ADR, and then it turned out that they decided to go ahead and do it in Europe, with the results of which were enough to upset me that I basically dropped off the rest of season 2 and never finished it. And part of the reason of that was because at the time, when there was no official release in English in any language, I was following the fan subs of it, and I was, I don't know if there was a break or something, but I wasn't able to continue keeping up with the last kind of like sprint of season 2 or so. And after the, hubbub that happened with, the Kickstarter and everything and the dub that ultimately came out, I was so upset because originally I was planning on just like going back to the beginning and watching the whole show again from start to finish with the dub, and then catching up to where season 2 was. And ultimately I didn't do that. So I was really upset. And then I found out that Wakfu ended up happening, they ended up doing the English dub at a new place, not where they did the Kickstarter trailer or the first 2 seasons dub, but they did it at another studio out here, and a whole bunch of friends of mine were in it. So that meant that it was going to be good. So I was very happy about that. And so the third season came up, I think about a month ago by this point. It's been quite a while already. And of course I got delayed with Anime April and everything. But so what I decided to do was, kind of retribution, as there was, I wanted to give my retribution as the Ankama had, fulfilled retribution to me, was I picked back up on where I left off years ago on season 2 and watched the French version that, on Netflix and finished up the rest of the story. And then I went ahead and I watched the OVAs. I had seen the Ogrest movie at some point, like years ago, but I watched the 6 Heliotrope Dofus OVA things, and then I went ahead and I started watching Wakfu season 3. And my God, here's the thing too. Before I get into the actual stuff about the story, I want you guys to understand this is a show that I've been following for, I think, maybe not 10 years, but close to it, like almost 10 years, since mid-college, I think, was when I started watching it in French. And there was a test dub that they did like for a couple episodes, and they did that with the guys that you might know from Code Lyoko and the infamous big green dub of Dragon Ball Z, some of the movies. Yeah, and then later there was another test dub that they did, I think at Blue Water Studios in Canada. That was brief, and I got actually a couple friends of mine that were in that too, funnily enough, but sadly they didn't get to do that. And then there was the dub that was done in the UK, I believe, for the first full 2 seasons, and the couple episodes I caught of that, I'm just like, oh, wow, this is not good. So finally, hearing a really, really good English dub of these characters who I've known and loved for many, many years, was a feeling that was very difficult to. It felt like when Funimation rescued One Piece. Let me put it that way. It was like, oh, they sound good. Oh, thank God. So right away, that made me like very happy with life. I'll say that much. But yeah, even picking back up on the show, all these years later and finishing up the rest of season 2, and then seeing these, the few years pass with the OVAs, and then eventually even more years pass with season 3. It was such a, it wasn't exactly like the One Piece thing, because I mean, that was just on the voice acting side of things, but for me, it was like, reuniting with these old friends again after years and years. And the funny thing is, it's not like it ever really went away. Like, I know that they were updating stuff with it, but because I was just so bitter about how things turned out with the Kickstarter and all that, I tuned out, and the love kind of faded for a bit. But I was always still kind of, rooting for, the animation team and everything, and, the production and all that from afar, because I wanted it to succeed. And I'm glad that it did ultimately, at, the very minimum, get an official release out here, and people were able to see it. They went up on Netflix pretty much right away after all that, so that is great, and I am happy about that. And I was very happy to finally catch up and see all these episodes again. So the thing about the show is that there's always been an edge of, it's that perfect kind of series that I love, where it's like, because I was really reminded right away when I got into watching these episodes again, or the new ones, that is, not again, was that it's the exact kind of series that I love the most, where it's that perfect combination of like, it can be serious and dark, but also it can still be like bright and colorful and have a sense of like playfulness and cuteness and happiness to it and everything. But then when it has to be serious, it can still be taken seriously in the first place, and like it can get really emotional. And it was also just pushed just enough. It's not like super mature or anything, but it's just mature enough that, like, the first episode of season 3, Ruby Lax is making a sex joke about I have to remember to call him Dally Persidal, because I'm so used to hearing Tristapon from listening to it in French, and Evangeline, which shout outs to Kyle McCarley and Kira Buckland and Erica Harlicker and Keith Silverstein and Christine Cabanos and Todd Habercorn. Everybody did such a great job on the show, and Christina V and Marcy Edwards, and so it was just so gratifying to hear these characters and hear those really solid performances coming out of them. Nonetheless, so first of all, I was surprised about, I guess Dali and Eva have kids now. That was a thing that happened that I've been in the dark about for a little while. I just popped back and, they've got children. They've got a third one on the way. How about that shit? Okay. I gotta say, I always tend to lean more towards, I like the little kid representative characters in these kind of shows. That's never been like a deal breaker for me with anything. So I was, right away, I really liked LLE and Flopon a lot. LLE in particular, became one of my new favorite characters, because she was like, Dally dialed up to 11, which, even I always think Dally is dialed up to 11, but, a step further beyond. So I fell in love with her right away as a character. She was great. But I was talking about the kind of dark side of the stuff and everything. This is definitely the most serious and the most, the darkest that the show has ever been, in my opinion. I mean, like, some of the season finale, really intensive, like, final battle stuff would get there, and, some of the character sacrifices and stuff, when Dally looked like he was going to die for the first time, and then that didn't happen, even after he loses an arm. There's that, but, and then, and going off of the OVA things as well, which were kind of starting to shift towards that direction a little bit, and then, coming to a head, particularly with the season 3 stuff. Like, it was really cool and really, like, it caught me off guard a little bit, because, like, my disbelief was suspended enough that, like, again, like, I could already take it seriously when it got to those moments, but, it definitely pushed further than before with some of the stuff that was happening with, like, the crazy life-ending, world-ending, crazy kind of shit that was, happening every other episode, it felt like. And especially with, when you ascend to having to use, like, God characters and, these big, larger than life kind of concepts, and you move on to that, level of something, it's, there's always going to be that sense of gravitas with everything. But the fact that it was still just like, the Brotherhood of Tofu gang and everything, and they were still, going about their usual business, except it was interesting too, because like particularly Evangeline and Amalia felt the most different. And actually, even Yugo to an extent. Yugo felt much more hardened and like, having this curse of like, I'm much older than I actually am, but, I still have to have the body of like a 10-year-old or whatever. And Evangeline being, I was explaining to Kira, as like, she's so different than like the way I'm used to her from the other stuff, where she's, a lot more like, kind of badass. In this one, she's like the kind of homely mom kind of personality. And then, Amalia is a very far cry from the bratty personality that she used to be. And of course, Dali and Ruel are exactly the fucking same as they always have been, which is great. And then actually, kind of a crazy thing. And this was another reminder. This and the fact that Eva and Dali had children by this point. The other big kind of like, wait, what the hell did I miss? Was when I saw what Adamai looked like, and I was like, oh, he's got this Frieza-esque design. Like, what has been happening in the meantime? And I remember actually before I started catching up on stuff, when season 3 first went up, I kind of skimmed through the first episode of season 3, and just because I wanted to hear some samples of what the new English voices sounded like and everything. And yeah, when like crazy, sinister, evil Adamai shows up or whatever, and I'm like, oh god, I am missing some things. Okay, yeah, I really need to go back and catch up what I've been missing in the last couple of years. So, but yeah, I mean that was huge, and particularly him alongside these new villain characters, the siblings or whatever, was really cool. Oropo, and I won't spoil everything, but the twist with him was incredibly intriguing. It was a little confusing, and I think probably also that was because I had been kind of so out of the loop with the lore side of things in the Wakfu universe that I just kind of forgotten like all the finite details of everything about a certain race of characters in the mythos of the Wakfu world. So it was like, wait, what? How does? Okay, whatever. But the fact, like, there's a big scene with him and Amalia in particular that like really shook me, and also a scene with Amalia and Yugo that shook me. That kind of has to do with that a little bit. But and I also I felt the need to watch that in French as well, just because I wanted to hear the actors that I've been hearing for so long portray that as well, in addition to my friends. But nonetheless. Yeah, this actually not even just the villains, but the whole concept of the season was a really cool idea. Like I mentioned, kind of it's one of those things. It's almost like that DBZS kind of thing where it's like, now where do we go? Okay, now we introduce God characters. It's like, or at least in this case, like characters that want to be gods and are trying to make themselves into the new gods, and assess everything with that, and using the main characters as part of that and everything. And kind of placing everybody in this big tower with like a different level for each of the remarkable races of the Wakfu world that have their own god each was really cool. It made great use of virtually every like major character in the entire series. There are a couple. There's like Cleophea and some of them that weren't around for this. Although even I got to say, it really made me giddy to see the little. Cameo of Nox and Quilby there's this is early on enough when Yugo has this kind of hallucination or whatever from one of the characters like Magic or whatever, and hearing KG and Joe Achman on there for the two of them was really awesome. I was like, oh god, everybody sounds so perfect in this. I will admit too, I was a little jealous that I didn't get the chance to be a part of the dub of this show, but I couldn't be better because like everybody was so good on every part. But yeah, and then every episode was utilized so well with this. I mean, this was definitely different than compared to the previous seasons, where there'd be a lot of little like fun misadventure kind of things, and particularly going off the OVAs where they were practically just built together like one big long like movie where like a very particular goal is happening, where like they're trying to save the Sarida kingdom from being flooded from Ogress seers and everything, and kind of having this throwback to the origin story stuff and everything, and then leading into the season 3 stuff where the entire premise is just trying to stop these guys from fulfilling their plan and going up this tower and everything. It made for a really cool season, and it felt more like a kind of a traditional sort of anime arc, as opposed to where the previous 2 seasons felt a little bit more like I mean, I don't want to say American cartoons because obviously it's European technically, but in that kind of like more episodic kind of nature to it. But this was just like, and I could tell that this was much more designed for like a streaming service kind of thing, because it was meant to be all kind of watched in succession too. You know, and a shorter count of episodes and everything. But I just, the biggest thing, you know, overall was I was just so happy to like fall right back in love with these characters all over again. You know, it had been so long, and like I said, it felt like seeing old friends again. You know, and with the new twist of hearing, you know, my actual real life friends coming out of their mouths. But yeah, this was fantastic. I'm really happy to be back into the show again. I've heard that there's going to be a season 4 of some kind, which may or may not happen. I don't know what the time frame for that is, but I'm all back in on the show again, and I want more people to experience it again as well. I won't spend too much time on making this raving tirade again, but I will say, if you have not experienced this show, I highly recommend checking out Wakfu. Again, also, if you've not been spoiled by this, I don't know why you're listening to this if you're not already watching it, but seriously, it is such an incredible, I was re-inspired like all over again. I felt like I was back in college, like, you know, viewing this stuff again. It's without a doubt the most masterful puppeted animation I think I've ever seen in terms of like Flash type of stuff and like those kind of that type of animation and everything. Like you can barely even tell at this point with how good it looks by season 3. Like visually it's stunning. The lore and the world building is incredible. The stories are a lot of fun. Like I said, like tonally, it's exactly the type of thing that's always been up my alley. And the biggest thing is like the group of main characters are just so freaking lovable, and they make me not want to say fucking. I say freaking instead. So I cannot recommend this show enough. It is all on Netflix. I think it might be on some other services. It might be on like Verve or something as well. It is absolutely worth getting into, and especially if you're a Tome fan and you haven't seen the show, you will see immediately the influence that it had on it, because it's very obvious, even just from the character designs as well. You can tell where I got some, I lifted a few little concepts from, particularly, so. Highly recommend the show if you haven't already seen it. Wakfu season 3 was fantastic, and looking forward to season 4 if whenever that may or may not be happening. So that's going to do it. In the comments below, I hope you've listened this far and you've seen Wakfu season 3. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions. Let me know favorite moments or scenes or new characters or anything, what your hopes are for the following season. And if you have other future Kirblog topic suggestions, as I'm continuing to try to do these every weekend as much as I can between work, let me know in the comments below as well, or hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, whatever you feel like, and mayhaps you will inspire the next Kirblog topic. Thanks very much, and I'll catch you all later. Fare thee well.